18 months ago, I made a video where I laid out my predictions for the story of the final shape before it was revealed. I also ranked each prediction on a 10-point confidence scale, where 10 was absolutely certain and 0 was no certainty at all. Today, I thought it would be fun to look back at what I thought was going to happen and compare it to the actual plot of the expansion. My first prediction was about the story of Season 22, Season of the Witch. Based on the ending to Season of the Deep, it was easy to predict that Season 22 would contain Savathun's resurrection, and the Vanguard asking her for help to enter the Witness's portal into the pale heart of the Traveler. I thought the season would follow this question, the relationship between Savathun and Xivu Arath, and would ultimately end with Savathun agreeing to ally with the Vanguard to fight the Witness. This ended up being almost completely correct. The only things I didn't predict were Eris becoming a hive deity and cutting Xivu out of her throne world, plus the surprise ending related to the Ahamkara. More on that when we discuss Season 23. I thought there would be more lore about the Veil and Savathun's actions during the collapse, but the story instead focused on the relationship between the two Hive sisters and their disagreements following Oryx's death. Overall, I would say this prediction was very solid, and was probably the easiest thing to get right in the video. What I got very wrong was what the plot for Season 23 would be. I thought it would be a Scorn season and that it would tie up the narrative for the Elixni. I thought that the Vanguard would follow some convoluted plan from Savathun to enter the portal that the Scorn would try to stop. I gave this prediction an 8 confidence-wise. This ended up being completely off base, as Season 23 ended up being Season of the Wish, following the Ahamkara and Savathun's final wish to Riven, which allowed her to send the Vanguard through the portal into the Pale Heart. Season 23 didn't focus on a single faction, as it was about all of the Witness's forces. Arguably, if you had to pick one, you could argue it focused most on the Soul Divisive Vex, via the exotic mission in the Black Garden. I was correct that the dungeon would be a Scorn dungeon involving Fickrel, which I rated 7 out of 10. I wasn't correct about the plot of the dungeon, but was right that it would involve Scorn who follow Fickrel and that Crow would be involved. I thought we would ally with Fickrel to fight the Witness, but this didn't end up happening. The coalition did not get any bigger than adding Savathun. Instead, in Warlord's Ruin, we fought Scorn following Fickrel trying to claim the bones of an Ahamkara in Shax's old castle. I also thought that Aramis and Misrax would be major characters in the plot of Season 23, and both would die for their respective houses in the battle with the Witness's forces. This ended up being false even though I gave it a 5 out of 10 confidence rating. Episode 2 Revenant instead paid off the foreshadowing I was basing the predictions off of, but in the opposite way. Neither character dies, Aramis acquires the Echo of Command, uses it to cure Misrax's curse, and then builds a new future for the Elixni too scarred by the whirlwind to ally with humanity. Bungie went the happy route to resolve the two narratives, rather than the sad route that I predicted. I was correct that Crow would be a major player in Season 23, but for the wrong reasons. I didn't realize that Season 23 would focus on Ahamkara and Last Wish. I also predicted that Crow would become the Hunter Vanguard in Season 23 before seeing Cade resurrected in the final shape, which we already knew was going to happen given the first teaser Bungie revealed in May 2023. I gave this an 8 out of 10. Crow did eventually become the Hunter Vanguard, but I was wrong about the timing. At the end of Season 23, Crow was sent through the portal into the Pale Heart, where he came face to face with Cade and made amends for Cade's death like I thought he would, but he wasn't Hunter Vanguard yet. He wouldn't officially take on that title until Cade passed him the torch directly, by giving Crow his blessing towards the end of the expansion's story. I ended up being right and for the right reasons, just wrong about the timing. My first prediction for the final shape itself was that the Witness would kill Ghost specifically, or the entity that gives Ghosts life, based on the vow of the Disciple of Prophecy. I gave it a 6 out of 10. This one wasn't technically correct, but it did hit the broad strokes of two things that happened during the expansion. Ghost does die by using too much of the Traveler's light to destroy the witness, before being resurrected by Cade as a sacrifice for his light. Technically, the witness's actions do result in Ghost's death, but indirectly. Ghost dies because he was injured fighting the witness and used all of his strength to defeat it. The witness does directly kill another ghost, Tarj, who defies the witness and sacrifices himself to save Zavala's life. The witness's plan was to take control of the light at the center of the Traveler and use it to put an end to entropy, freezing the universe in stasis. I was correct that the witness was trying to accomplish this goal, but I thought it would actually succeed and kill ghosts, which was wrong. My next prediction was about Dark Guardians becoming corrupted by stasis and fighting for the witness. I gave it a 7 out of 10. This didn't come true, but we did fight the equivalent of Dark Bearers, the Subjugators and Dread Scions, just not corrupted humans. Above everything I got wrong, I think this prediction was the most surprising to me. I thought that we would see aspects of Elsie's dark future come true with corrupted guardians fighting uncorrupted ones, but this didn't happen. It honestly makes that storyline feel like a red herring, and I'm kinda sad it wasn't paid off. It feels like a missed opportunity to me given the heavy foreshadowing during Beyond Light. I'm guessing this didn't happen because Bungie created the Dread who somewhat filled this role. It would have been narratively resonant and raised the stakes substantially to fight human guardians who choose the witness's side, to convey the theme of internal conflict within humanity about using the darkness to fight the Pyramid Fleet. Instead, we got a more subdued version of this where Zavala is tempted by the witness but doesn't succumb to it. That subplot was fantastic character work, but I think there was sufficient narrative room for the story of humans who go rogue and fight for the witness to appear on screen, replicating the horror of seeing the Hive wielding the light during Witch Queen. It also would nicely display the themes about gardening and winnowing set up by Unveiling, where the winnower says that some guardians practice their principle. It's a bit weird to me that no humans took the witness's offer for power within the Black Fleet. Just imagine if one of the bosses in the raid had been a human who could wield light and darkness against us. It would have been amazing. Alright, that's enough fanfiction, so let's move on. I had a Hail Mary of an idea that after Ghost's death, the Guardian would receive a throne world in the Ascendant Plane, allowing them to resurrect themselves from the dead. This isn't something I was convinced would actually happen, and more so wishful thinking given the lore of Throne Worlds. This could have been an interesting subplot foreshadowed by Eris's hive magic in Season of the Witch, and paid off in the expansion, but given that Ghost was resurrected by Cade, it was ultimately unnecessary. I still think it's a cool idea, but I'm under no illusions that it will ever happen, which is why it was a 5 out of 10. I thought the Throne World would be the source of the new subclass, which also was wrong. Instead, the Traveler gave us a gift, the ability to use light and dark simultaneously. I, like everyone in their Destiny playing Mother, was convinced the subclass shipping with the final shape would be a traditional 6th subclass and 3rd darkness subclass that would be related to telekinesis as the opposite of Arc. I gave this a 4 out of 10 and ended up being very wrong, given the nature of Prismatic. Prismatic makes a lot more sense from a narrative perspective, so I'm glad we got that instead. My next idea ended up being very close to correct, but just slightly off. I thought that the Guardian would harness all light and dark abilities to defeat the Witness by severing its consciousnesses. We did this using the Traveler's Light, but we also used Prismatic to get there. I wasn't envisioning something like Prismatic, but I was generally looking in that direction about the balance between light and dark being the key that allows us to defeat the Witness. I also thought that we would fight each of the 6 factions on the way to the Witness: Scorn, Hive, Taken, House Salvation, Dark Guardians, and Shadow Legion. This is a near-perfect accidental prediction of the format of the raid, where each of the 5 encounters contains a different faction and the dread spread throughout. Not including Soul Divisive on this list was a major oversight. Dark Guardians didn't happen, but the closest thing, the Dread, took their place. I got the broad strokes of the expansion featuring every enemy faction we've ever faced correct. Finally, I hedged my bets and made a very safe prediction about the raid, saying that the Witness was most likely to be the final boss, but that it could also be Savathun, Xivu Arath, or Scorn Resurrected Aramis. The way Bungie ultimately constructed the expansion worked perfectly, so I'm glad it was the Witness and not someone else. I wish I hadn't hedged and solely mentioned my main prediction of us fighting the Witness Oryx style in the raid, as that was one of the main things confirmed in the reveal. Ultimately, I got a lot right and wrong about the final shape in unexpected ways. I would say about half of my predictions were right and half were wrong, which is about what I expected. I'm curious to see what other people thought of my predictions and also what predictions you had going into the expansion. Let me know if you'd want to see more retrospectives on older videos like this one. And thank you for being a channel member. The support means a lot.